Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Are you an engineer or an analytical thinker, or do you look at life through the lens of logic? Do you prefer to observe people rather than just talk to them? And does a social event filled with strangers sound like an absolutely horrible way to spend your night? Well, if so, then you are an introvert. Welcome to the club. And if you're an introvert, there is one area of your life that's most likely been a challenge for you, and that's dating and relationships. So dating as an introvert is one long list of missed opportunities for you and your potential partner because approaching and talking to strangers is simply not in your nature. But that doesn't have to be the case. Sarah Jones is the founder of Introverted Alpha, and she's here to help introverted men find their dating mojo, increase their confidence, and help the women in their lives understand them better. So if you are an introvert or if you know one, do not miss today's episode. What you will learn has the power to completely change your life. So with that being said, please help me welcome Sarah Jones. Well, Sarah Jones, welcome to the show, and I'm pretty darn disappointed that I didn't meet you 10 years ago.
Well, Mike, I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have made it your life's mission to help introverted men overcome their challenges when it comes to dating and women and social interactions in general. And given the fact that I am definitely an introvert, I'm super excited to have you here today and to learn what you're going to be sharing with us. And thank you so much for joining.
Well, perfect. Yeah. Well, I love knowing that you're an introvert because introverted men, you guys are the best.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your theory on why that is. And that's good to hear. But how did you get started in this? How did you make this your niche and your purpose?
Well, I started with academic tutoring on and off for 10 years, 16 to 26. And I enjoyed tutoring all of my students, and I tutored kids and adults and everybody. But I really loved helping the guys. I liked when they were so earnest and they just really wanted to get it right. I found that very endearing and helpful. And it just kind of clicked. So that was kind of happening. And also I've just loved introverted men my whole life. My dad, my brother, men I've dated are all, the linear logical type. So I've always really liked and just kind of clicked with that kind of guy. And, in any kind of context. So I was tutoring and I loved, I would just focus on helping them become confident in themselves and also to see learning as fun. So those were the two things. And the actual material was always kind of peripheral to that. I mean, it was important because that's why I was there, is to help them learn these math concepts or these grammar rules and whatnot. But really, I knew that if they could become confident in themselves and know that they could do it, because if they were getting a tutor, that means that a lot of them kind of felt defeated to one degree or another. Maybe they were even being told, maybe even sometimes by their parents, that they may not have had what it took, which made me so mad when I saw that. I was like, all right, well, we're going to create a little cocoon here, just us. And in this cocoon, you can do it, and then as that gets strong, then you can just do it all the time and in front of everybody, right? So it's like a safe place where they were able to be confident in themselves because I so much knew that they could do it. And that kind of translated to them, and then they could feel it for themselves. But also it had to be fun, because who wants to learn something that's drudgery and boring and stuff? I mean, I knew that if we didn't make it fun, then nothing would stick. And they may be able to make themselves study for a test, but if it was going to be sustainable, it had to be really enjoyable for them. And I would tell them, we're going to have fun today. And they'd be like, how can we have fun? Because math is not fun. And I was like, that's what everybody says. I know. But just trust me, at the end of this, you're going to be saying that was fun. And sure enough, by the end, they would say that was fun. And they'd be surprised at themselves because we made it fun. We made it like a game, and as long as they weren't feeling defeated walking right in, and they could see that these are pretty interesting concepts. It may not be things they want to dwell on 24/7, but learning is fun when you know you can do it. So that was a foundation for me for what I do now. And it took me probably a couple years in before I realized I was doing the same thing with my guys. So like helping them become confident in themselves and also helping the process become fun. Because for a lot of guys, especially like this kind of linear, logical, goal oriented type, like dating is like a work to be done to get the goal, which is a partner or fun dates. But for a lot of these guys, I've actually just been reading Why Him, Why Her. It's fascinating research about these 4 types of people. So there's the director, negotiator, builder, and explorer. And the director is what most of all my guys are, and more men than women are that. And it's very linear, logical, goal-oriented, and whatnot. And dating is different for all the 4 types. And for director, it's like work. And when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's how it is for my guys. So if I can make that work fun and have them see what is sexually attractive about them, because that's equal to confidence in that dating context, then, they're off to the races. And it's a lot of that is like pre-work done beforehand.
So for the introverts who are listening out there, the guys who are listening out there, what are some of the common traits that they have and difficulties that they've probably experienced in, relationships and in their dating life that you might be able to share so that they realize, oh, that's pretty normal for my personality type?
Oh my gosh, I could talk about that for an hour. I'll hit the high notes. So probably the number one thing is, I think there's maybe 2 huge things. It's like umbrella things. Number one is that they just don't see what is sexually attractive about them. They can see what's great about them. They're reliable. They're perseverant, but they don't see sometimes how that's sexually attractive, but it actually really is. And I think they don't see that because they just see, like the Hollywood type protagonist who is, this very certain type of guy who is just, seems like he was just born socializing and the center of attention in the life of the party. And they're like, I'm not like that. But what they are forgetting is the other, even Hollywood icons like James Bond, for example. Whoa, super introverted, super mysterious. And especially for women who are warm and open and intuitive and love connecting with people, that contrast of being that way as a woman and then seeing a man who is, composed, maybe not as expressive. Not all men are this way, but this kind of guy who's very introverted and private, it actually has its own sense of alpha that is more similar to James Bond than, like a goofball. And different women are attracted to different kinds of things. But usually these guys are attracted to warm and loving women. And it turns out those kinds of women are very attracted to these kinds of qualities that they already have. Problem is, if they don't feel sexual in their own skin and they don't feel comfortable with sexual attraction, she's not going to be invited to experience them that way. It's nothing about them intrinsically as a person at all. It's just about a skill level and a comfort, which is a skill level because it's buildable. A skill is something you can build versus just something that you're either born with or not. And all of the dating and sexual, comfort is skills. So that's one thing is they just think, well, I don't have anything sexually attractive about me. And if anybody's listening who feels that way, it's like, I totally get it. Just, go to my site and read all the reasons and ways that you are attractive. I have so many blogs on it, and just it's in the language of everything. And you can start to see yourself in a new way and also realize that so many other guys that are so great feel that way. And as soon as you learn a few things about how to really see what isn't uniquely in you that's sexually attractive, and I have an ebook on that and walks you through an experience. It's free. It's on my site. You can start to see, oh, okay, maybe I do have something to offer, and you totally do. I've never met a guy who doesn't. So that's one thing. And then the other main thing is about reading women. So you may, if you're listening and you're resonating with the first point, you might resonate with the second point too, of like, gosh, I just don't know how to tell. I don't know how to tell if a woman's interested in me, or even if I do, I don't know what to do. I don't know what she wants. I don't know how to tell if she's comfortable, if she's enjoying me. The last thing I want to be is a creep, because most dating advice out there, most of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is, I find to be, and my guys find to be disrespectful to men and women. So it's obviously disrespectful to women if it's like manipulate and trick them to get them into bed. But that same phrase is actually disrespectful to men too, because it assumes that men just want to get women into bed. And the thing is, most don't. That's a very particular kind of personality and kind of guy. And there's women that's like a great match for, and there's so many kinds of people in the world. But for linear, logical, more serious, focused guys, a connection is important. Even if it is just for one night, a connection, a genuine connection is so important. So a lot of the advice that's out there completely glosses over that and assumes that they shouldn't want that, or even assumes or implies that it's not masculine to want that, which is so much wrong. That's not at all accurate. It's just so they're looking at all this advice and they're feeling inadequate because of it. But really, it's like, it's good that they can't implement it, because that means that they have integrity and they have a higher standard for connection. So if you feel like confused, you don't know how to read women, you don't want to be a creep, like all this stuff, like that actually just shows your integrity, which is wonderful and critical for a quality woman who also has integrity to be attracted to you. So if you felt bad at all about not being able to implement the standard, dating advice that doesn't feel respectful to you, that's actually a really, really, really good thing.
So let's tackle the the biggest challenge here that I can think of, which is, what advice do you give to introverts when it comes to actually approaching or meeting a woman?
Great question.
I know you talked about that on your website, where it's like, it's a tragedy on how many opportunities of connections are missed because of that. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, great question. So most of it is pre-work. That might not be like a sexy answer, like, oh, this is the magic thing to say. If you say this one thing, it's going to work every time. Okay, no, it's how you are. How do you show up? How are you already? But I'll talk about how to do that in a moment too. I'll kind of walk you through the whole process here. So in the beginning, knowing why and how you are sexually attractive, number one. And this is just basically like realizing that you can just kind of get a boost in this right in this moment by realizing that some of the qualities that you've had that you may not have thought are sexy are actually, linear, logical, whatever. That focus is so attractive because it's so different from just kind of like a more feminine way of being. Not just, I don't want to limit, everybody and say, oh, women are always feminine, men are always masculine, whatever. But if you're drawn to a feminine woman and you may have masculine qualities that you didn't really realize that are masculine, which is directional, focused, perseverant, hardworking, loyal. All those things are sexually attractive because it's what women that are warm and loving and have integrity look for often in a partner. So that's number one, feeling sexually attractive and also presenting that way, right? So paying attention to how you're grooming, what you're wearing, whatnot, so that you know that you're like the full picture and that you're presenting yourself well. So that all happens before you show up anywhere. Another thing that happens is acknowledging your standards, because a lot of the advice, if guys have read different advice out there, it's kind of just act like they should be attracted to anyone who is physically, objectively pretty, when I just find that so disrespectful to guys, because just like all humans, we have standards for who we feel attracted to. And it's more than just how somebody, like, not only how they look, because how somebody looks shows their insides too. If you really look at them, you can see a lot about them at first glance. But it's more than like her body shape or whatever, right? It's like, do you feel drawn to her as a person? So if you do some introspective work, just kind of thinking, okay, what kind of woman do I like? What is a deal breaker for me? Some guys will say, Sarah, like, how do I talk to the woman at the bar who is just really mean? Like, why do you want to talk to her? Is that going to be fun for you? Are you going to have a good conversation? No, don't worry about it. Let somebody else talk with her who is a match for her. And you scan the room for who you feel drawn to. So now let's look at, like, once you're actually at the venue, here's kind of what to do. first of all, which venue to show up at. Show up at places that you want to be. Bars and clubs is what everybody thinks about, but that's only 2 out of over 115 venues that I have put together. So 2 out of that, that's like less than 2%. There are so many places and ways. Dancing is a favorite of a lot of my clients, like partner dancing, dancing lessons is great for so many reasons. You get practice leading and feeling close with a woman and leading her well. It's just great. And also you get to connect through touch instead of chit chat, which is great too. Doesn't mean you're always going to meet somebody you're going to have a chemistry connection with, but it's just great practice. And many times you will. Doing any kind of sport or physical activity together, any kind of like a team sport is really great. Going to an event that's around, something cultural or artistic or musical or something that you're interested in, or volunteering or something that you believe in. These things that you're interested in, there's going to be women there that are single, that have those same values, that would love to meet you. So first, show up to places that you actually want to be, rather than just bars and clubs and like not thinking. Because chances are, if you're all the other things I said, you're thoughtful as well. So not thinking doesn't suit you. You can't just make yourself do something. You have to feel aligned with it, and it has to be thoughtful. So showing up to a place that you want to be. And then when you get there, scan the room for who you feel most drawn to. And if you've been nervous, if you just feel like really psyched out about quote unquote approaching an attractive woman, then just scan the room for anybody that you feel drawn to, sexually or not. So it could be another guy that you really like, kind of how he is holding himself or what he's wearing, or just kind of how he seems to be. There seems to be something that you really like. And so you can talk with him. Or a woman who you may not feel sexually attracted to, but there's something really warm about her that you feel drawn to, that you feel genuinely drawn to, you feel good about. And you can talk with them first, and then you can talk with the women that you feel more attracted to. But the first step is just scan the room. If you're really nervous, you don't even have to approach anyone that you feel drawn to, platonic or not, on your very first time or two practicing this. You can just practice noticing who you feel drawn to. And you can do this in your day-to-day life too. As you go to the grocery store, as you go to the gym, whatnot, you can always scan the room for who do you feel drawn to, because it helps you know yourself better. And knowing yourself is very empowering, because it's the opposite of being thoughtless and just going through motions that somebody else told you to do. If you are thoughtful and linear and logical, then you want to do something because it feels good for you to do. So noticing who you feel drawn to is the first step. Once you've noticed who you feel drawn to, then move closer to that person in the room, obviously, because you can't go from seeing them several feet away to all of a sudden, quote unquote, approaching or talking to them or making this crazy beeline. Just go closer to them, move closer to them in the room. People are mingling, people are around. There's always a way to do that slowly. And as you do that, if you can put yourself in her line of sight so that she can see you and get a sense of you before. And I have even some clients who they prefer to actually wait until they see that she's looking at them too, and she seems to be open, before they'll actually say something. Other guys will go ahead and say something. It just depends. And that's what I love about this process. Like it's personal preference. There's no way, you don't have to make yourself do anything. But if you can move closer to her and get in her line of sight and give her a chance to notice you, and then that's just nice. Even if you don't notice her noticing you, or even if she doesn't necessarily, you'll still be more familiar to her, and it'll be a warmer way to start a conversation compared to if you like came up to her from behind, which would be very jarring. So put yourself in her line of sight. And then when you're close enough to talk with her, there's an opening in a conversation, you guys are both getting drinks or whatnot, then you can make a comment that is genuine, like an actual observation about the environment where you find yourself. You can compliment her as well, but you don't have to. You can just talk about, oh, her drink looks really great, or you love this music, or it's something positive about the environment that you're already noticing. So if you want to practice this ahead of time in your everyday life, you can notice little things that you like, little things that you notice about your environment that you enjoy, so that your headspace is already more there. Plus, it's really fun. Who doesn't want to love where they're at? There's all kinds of things to love. And so when you're focusing on that, even just a little bit, then it's easier than when you're in the moment and this beautiful woman is next to you and you're like, what do I say? You have at least one or two things that you're already enjoying about the environment or about her. But you don't have to feel pressure to do that. And it's not necessary. It's just whatever feels natural in the moment. And the first couple of times it may be kind of scary, but a lot of the guys that end up going through this process, like they don't feel like, oh, they made this approach, because approach is such a jargony word in the dating advice world for men. And it kind of has become its own entity that mostly just equals like stress and freakouts. Whereas in reality, it's people having a conversation, seeing if there's a connection, exploring where there's a connection. So I've had some clients who just ditch the word approach altogether and just call it connecting. And then it's like, now they don't have all that jargon in their head and they're free to just scan the room for who they feel drawn to, move closer to her, get in her line of sight, and offer something about the environment or about her.
One of the things you mentioned at the beginning about, physical presence, I think is critically important because, nobody knows the exact number, but we've all read that communication, 80 to 90% of communication can be nonverbal.
Yeah.
Right? So body language is incredibly important for introverts to pay attention to because that can say everything that you need to say. So,
Totally.
yeah, being relaxed in your masculine, confident, and just in command of yourself in a really relaxed way is very appealing to many women. So I think that's really, really important. And to change gears a little bit on the conversation here, one of the things that I'm thinking about in my head is, the dating part and meeting a woman is fairly straightforward, right? And I think you did a fantastic job kind of laying that out in a totally non-creepy way, which I'm really grateful for. I saw somebody in a Facebook discussion the other day saying I used this such, move on whatever, and I was just like, oh my God, make it stop. So
yeah.
But I think the real challenge for introverts comes into play as well once you're in a relationship, because you tend to approach conflict, miscommunication, whatever it may be, with a logical solution. We've all seen that video on YouTube of the couple and the girl's got the nail in her head, right?
Yeah.
So I'll put a link to that in the show notes for those of you who haven't. But the guy just wants to fix the problem, especially a logical thinker. And we tend not to communicate through feelings, which is typically how the woman is communicating through. So there's a complete disconnect and a misunderstanding from both people from moment one. And after an extended period of time, that can get really frustrating for both people. So how do you, as a woman, frankly, have a satisfying relationship with a really logical man if that's not a part of, who they are?
Great question. So here's how I think of it and how I talk about it and experience it. For a guy that's linear, logical, wants to solve the problem, like that is very endearing. And that is an expression. It's two things. On the one hand, it is an expression of love and like taking care of. But on the other hand, it can be an expression of like feeling irritated or some kind, maybe even sometimes a lack of understanding, or sometimes maybe even like a lack of respect of a partner's process. Happens on both sides. So there's two things that go into the problem solving, right? But one of those things is genuine care and like so much earnestness. And that's wonderful. And that's part of the reason for wanting to problem solve. But again, then there's this other part that can be irritated and just wants the problem to go away. Can be. It depends on the couple. It depends on the moment. It depends on a lot of things. But it's nice to be aware of like, where is this desire to problem solve coming from? Likely it's somewhere between 0 and 100%, mixed between both of those things. And the thing is, wanting to problem solve is not bad. And this is where it makes me really mad that a lot of people just kind of want for like guys to stop trying to solve the problem and to just like be there and listen instead. That really makes me upset because this kind of guy can't help but want to solve problems. And when he's not able to just do that, then he feels like his natural disposition or his natural values are like failing, or they're not right, or there's something wrong. When in reality, the way I see it is, you can still problem solve your heart out, but just problem solve well. Because if we go back to that crazy video, the woman has this nail, literally like a literal nail sticking out of her head. The guy's like, yeah, no, you just have this thing. And she's like, why don't you ever listen to me? Just listen. Now, by him trying to solve the problem by just hurrying up and telling her she has this thing, it was ineffective as a problem-solving strategy, because it just prolongs the back and forth and her feeling misunderstood. Her feeling understood is a prerequisite for the actual problem being solved. So it's part of an effective problem-solving strategy. So what he could have done was see that she has this thing, get an assessment of the situation. Okay, I can clearly see that this is the problem. Also, right now, she's really upset. I know that we can't even discuss logical problem solving until I'm with her, I hold her, whatever it is that you know that your partner loves and needs. Once we do that, then we can get logical. But the whole process is problem solving, because you can say, you know, when I'm with her and holding her, we're moving down the path of being able to resolve this for her. And assuming that she is a, healthy, well-adjusted woman, she's going to want to solve the problem. She's not just going to sit there and be dramatic and just rehash, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be attracted to her. So she wants to solve the problem too, just not right this very second when she can't even think straight, right? So it's about being an effective problem solver, not trying to change your very nature as a problem solver.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I dig it. What else do people need to know? I'm sitting here going through like a dozen different scenarios in my head, but I'd rather default to your wisdom on that.
Well, I think going back to this example we were just talking about, I think like in that moment where there's that shared connection, like because these guys that are logical and linear, they are so earnest. They want that, as long as they know, everybody knows that that what they need is going to be met. Then in that moment, he can really be with her and not only meet her needs, but it's very satisfying, I imagine, to be a man who is feeling strong and present and able to be there in that moment with his partner, knowing that in 20 minutes or tomorrow or sometime, the problem can be solved. But right now, there's a special moment because, life has so many different emotions, right? So many different ones. And sometimes we push away the unpleasant ones, like upset or crying or something. But sometimes it can be really nice because it's just part of the human experience. And if you're sharing that together and connecting, it can actually be really special. So I would also say, like, not only see it as a step along the pathway of problem solving, but also just remember to enjoy those moments.
Do you have any recommendations for how introverts should approach general communication with their partner? And let's just say, for lack of a better word, like a check-in. And what I mean by that is my natural default is that whether it's my best friends, my coworkers, a girlfriend, whoever it may be, if there's nothing being communicated, that means to me that everything is great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I told you last month I love you. What? Nothing's changed since then. Like, of course I love you. Geez, that's a given. Whereas for many women, it's like, we need more than just an occasional
reminder.
that. Yeah, exactly. So one really good thing to learn more about, I imagine a lot of your guys already have, but the 5 love languages, very good, very good. Basically, there's 5 languages of expressing your love to your partner and just in general: physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. And everybody has a primary way and a secondary way of giving and receiving love. Sometimes it's different. You give love one way, we receive another, but usually you kind of give and receive the same way. And so sometimes, let's say a lot of guys they may express love in another way besides words. So so it just requires a lot of conversations with their partner to say, okay, this is how I most natively express love, by doing things for you, around the house or these different things, like, which is the acts of service. And if you can explain, because I think what's exhausting for a lot of guys that are not as verbally expressive in these ways is like just saying I love you on repeat can just feel like it may not even feel genuine because you feel like you're doing it just because she wants you to do it. And then it's just this whole thing. But if you can be focused in a conversation, in a moment, to explain to her what it means for you, what you're feeling, what you're thinking when you do things around the home for her, or whatever is your love language, if it's touch, when you touch her, how that feels for you, what it means, it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging to put that into words. But if you can do that once, she can see the depth of it, the depth that it has. Because if you don't say that, she's just thinking that she doesn't even know that that means that you love her. And if you say, oh yeah, I do these things because I love you, honey, that still doesn't have the same depth. But if you say, when I'm doing those things, like when I am, picking up the dry cleaning and I see, like, I saw your dress. It was so beautiful. I remember how amazing you looked when we went out to that blah, blah, blah the other night. And like, I just love, and then because those things are true. They're so tender and you may not often say them, but those little things that are true, if you can say those in a focused conversation about that topic, it may be challenging for you, but she'll like kind of always remember that. And then every time that you do those things, she's knowing that that's what you're feeling when you do them, even though you don't have to say it, but you've communicated it once. And so she knows, and it's going to be a challenge for her too. If she's a verbal person and words of affirmation is important to her, it's not always going to maybe be sunshine and roses. She may feel like, something's kind of missing and you may feel like you're not able to do that for her, but it's the conversation around it is valuable. And it's fun to watch, yourselves as a couple become more and more articulate in the different ways of showing love and to see if you can meet each other where you're at.
Yeah, the 5 love languages is a game changer. If y'all haven't read that book, go read it. It's super tiny. It's like 50 pages, but it is revolutionary information if you haven't had it at your disposal before. And personally, I will never date someone who I do not have at least one primary language with.
Yeah,
it's
makes things easier.
Yeah, well, I found that out the hard way through a divorce, and after the divorce, my ex and I we read the book and we realized we don't have any of them in common, but we weren't aware of that at the time, which is why we never were able to connect in any way. So that's super, super important. And for the women who are listening who are in a relationship with an introvert, one of the other things that I can relate to and think of is the fact that introverts tend to have entire conversations with themselves in their head without letting anybody else know that this is taking place. And it could be about the future of the relationship. So how do women who are dating an introverted man pull that out or recognize that maybe that's a conversation that's taking place internally that needs to be vocalized?
Okay. So the thing is, I feel that introverted men may be more intuitive and sensitive to how a woman is approaching a conversation than either partner may even realize. I think that men are extremely intuitive. So if you want to bring up a topic that may be, kind of sensitive, or let's say even it's been a hot topic in the past, what about the future of our relationship? If you can check in with yourself, spend some time with yourself and say, okay, there's a couple ways I could be feeling about this. One is I can maybe kind of irritated, maybe anxious, maybe disappointed, maybe angry, whatever, that we haven't already talked about this, or that I feel uncertain about this, or whatever that is. It's okay that you feel that way, and it's understandable, and it's important for you to notice that in yourself. But on the other hand, what else are you feeling? You love him. You want to feel connected with him in a way that feels good for both of you. This is not an agenda that you have onto the relationship. It's for both of you, your connection together. So if you can acknowledge you have these kind of two things going on, and then you can focus on being in the space of that second one and just feeling that second one, that love for him, that love for your connection, and bring up the topic while you feel that. Doesn't mean you have to hide the other feelings or pretend that they're not there or whatever. It just means it's best if you're aware of them so that that's not infiltrating the way that you bring up the topic. Because if you bring it up charged with a little bit of that anger or whatever, behind the surface, you may not even, if you're not aware of it, you may not even know, but he feels it. And then he's going to like block that because that's jarring. And so if you can just notice that about yourself and come to the conversation more in touch with the love and the harmony part of it, then it can be so much easier for both of you to have a conversation about that. And then as you're, then once you're into it, you can say, oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this because I felt all of this and I felt all that, and I felt all that because I haven't understood what you just told me. Right. So sometimes if you bring up the conversation in a way that's not negatively emotionally charged, and you can learn some things that can resolve the charge that you had. You couldn't have learned those things if you would just come in that way without really realizing it.
What advice would you give to women and to men as well on how to handle the amount of recovery time an introvert needs from a solitude standpoint? Mm-hmm. Right? Like how does a woman not take that personally? Because I've seen that happen as well. But I need a lot of alone time just to recover, and so that I have some energy to give, and that can be taken the wrong way.
Yeah, well, I think Susan Cain's book Quiet is wonderful for being able to really understand introverts and really get the reason for that recharge and alone time. And I think a lot of these things can be understood with empathy, and it's hard to feel empathetic if we're feeling rejected or hurt or something. So, but if you can see, okay, let's look at this. I know my partner loves me. I don't feel loved when he goes away for the weekend after I had been looking forward to spending time with him. Maybe there was just this unspoken expectations for the weekend, or maybe you even said something about, a friend's show or something, but you didn't necessarily make plans. And meanwhile, he was thinking about, going away and going hunting for the weekend or something. And then all of a sudden, he's going. So there can just be better communication around, what are we feeling for the weekend? And as you know him better and oh my God, it looks like it's been a really hard week. I bet he's going to want to get away. And it's just like love, when you really love him and you say, okay, you know what, this is what you need. And then also this is what I need. I want you to go hunting, just not this weekend. I really, really want you to be here this weekend. And as long as he gets to go hunting the next weekend, so it's being flexible, caring about what he needs, but also caring about what you need, and also realizing everybody wants to connect. Okay. Everybody wants a genuine connection, especially if both people have integrity. Then, oh my God, you have such a foundation. You have integrity. You want to connect. So any ways that you haven't been connecting, it's there's two sides to everything. And I think it's such a skill, right? It's so hard to bring empathy to something that we're feeling charged and upset about. I mean, it's hard for me too. It's just a really hard thing, but it's also satisfying as a skill to build. And I think what you said, Mike, about if you can be with someone that maybe not everything is lined up, maybe let's say both of you share touch as a primary language, but, he needs a lot more alone time than you, notice. And if you can, if you're between relationships, if you can consider what is a non-negotiable for you, if a lot of time together is so important for you, a lot constant, then, maybe someone who's extremely private, it may be a struggle if you're between relationships. But if you're in one and that's the case, I think understanding why he needs that and that it's not personal towards you at all. And then having these conversations where he's able to express how and why that's not personal and what it means for him. And then you can express what means so much to you. Maybe a Saturday around the house doesn't mean much as going to the park for a picnic or something. So what are the things that really do it for you? And what are the things that really do it for him? And if you can get really quality moments where each of you is feeling really full and fulfilled or recharged, then that's just a smart thing to be able to do. And it just, I think, takes a lot of conversations and noticing.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So we've got about 5-10 minutes left. What have we not covered yet that would be really important for for all of the introverts out there listening to know?
Really good question.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah. I think it's important to just maybe go on a little hunt for other men that are maybe even like famous or in history or in Hollywood or in your own life that are introverted and have similar dispositions to you that you just think are like really great men and you know that they are attractive. And that if you've been feeling like it's hard to see yourself that way, gather other points of reference, because definitely the more extroverted life of the party is what's shown most in like American culture, especially if you're in America, that's, very like prominent. But in other cultures, it's not. Like in other cultures, the like silent alpha male is everything, right? So see if you can just kind of open your mind a little, go instead of reinforcing the things that you don't want to be true, like, well, I guess the other guys are more attractive than me and I just need to deal with that and I'll be alone forever. Instead of reinforcing that and gathering data points for that, it's like, I see this a lot. A guy will gather all these data points. So he'll come to one of our coaches and he'll say, okay, here's all the reasons why I'm not attractive. And here's all my data points about that. I've been on Photo Feeler and other people have rated my photos and they don't like them and all of this. And women are more attracted to guys of this height and I'm not. And so I have all this data that shows that I'm not attractive. And like, here's the thing, all of that, a lot of those things are data, but it's such a small slice of the whole pie of data. You're missing the other universe of data that is there, which is a lot of the things that we've covered today and just other new ways of thinking about things. So just be aware of your tendency if you get hyper focused about all this data. Well, what if that's just one small piece of the puzzle? What if it is there, but then there's so much other too? If those points of data were absolute, then no one under 5'10" or whatever would ever get a date. And that is not accurate. There are data points that directly conflict with that. So don't get so married to your data points. Like there's a lot more data points. And if you can think more big picture, that can really help you out.
It's funny. I don't know why I cue in on this, but throughout my life, whenever I start to have like self-doubt in this area, I just remember I'm like, Danny DeVito is married to like this beautiful woman and he's Danny DeVito. Like he's
exactly right.
4 feet tall and chubby and bald.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, what does that say? That says that there's other stuff at play than whatever data points there are about height or this or that. Exactly. That's exactly it. Having more flexible thinking and noticing and letting things in to our minds that may not be completely consistent with what has already been in our minds.
So I think that's some fantastic parting advice. If I could provide anything in addition to that, it would be for all of the introverted guys out there to go make an effort to become aware and learn how to understand how to communicate with women. Because if you're not going to put any effort into that, then it's just not going to work out really well for you. It's not really fair to your partner. But if you will, you'll find that you'll acquire a new set of tools that will really help things work out in a fantastic way.
That is such a good point, Mike. 100%.
Awesome. So for all of the guys out there listening who have been like, oh my God, this is me, where can they go connect with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, you can go to introvertedalpha.com and there's a little menu icon that says free ebook. That ebook has been around for a long time, 3 years. I get emails about it all the time. Guys love it. And it has exercises in there about how to find what is sexually attractive about you. And it's just really, it's fun and it helps your confidence, which kind of brings us back to full circle of the whole tutoring background. Fun and confident. Who doesn't want those things, right? So once you get the ebook, you'll be on my email list too, and we can stay in touch. And also feel free to reach out and tell me that you found me through Mike, and I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation. It's one that we haven't had before here on the show, and I think it's going to really resonate with a lot of the guys in our audience. So I'm grateful. Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Guys, leave some comments below the post. We'll put some show notes in there as well, along with links to Sarah's website. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If this really resonated with you and you'd like to talk about this subject more often, I would love to know that. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.